I'd like to introduce our moderator for today's webinar, Paul Marca. Mr. Marca is the Executive Director of the Stanford Center for Professional Development here at Stanford University. He is responsible for collaborating with Stanford faculty, industry experts, and corporate partners to develop the curriculum of graduate degrees, graduate and professional certificates, and contact training for one of the largest university continuing education organizations and distance education networks. Paul is a Stanford graduate and has been a member of the senior management team for over 20 years. He has experience as a television producer and director, served on 2 startup advisory boards, and consulted with a variety of media-based companies. He also helped to build the Stanford Advanced Project Management Program, which received the 2005 Best Non-Credit Program Award from the Association of Continuing Higher Education. In 2012, he was elected as a council member for the International Association for Continuing Engineering Education, the IACEE, and was selected as the program chair for IACEE's 2014 World Conference, which will be held here at Stanford. Welcome, Paul.
Robert, thank you very much, and thanks to all of you who are joining us here today. I know that for the United States, at least, it's Thanksgiving. Many people are thinking about turkey rather than massively open and online courses. But we hope that today, with our speaker, Patricio Montesinos, you will join us in an active dialogue about this new and emerging trend and maybe contribute some thoughts of your own about what your universities are doing. My job now is to introduce Patricio Montesinos. Patricio is the head of the unit of the Centro de Formación Permanente of the Universidad de Polytechnic de Valencia. Since 1992, Patricio has been responsible for more than 30 national and international projects in continuing education, not only in Europe, but also he spends much time in Latin America and Asia. Patricio is the author of 3 books, 8 chapters, and more than 40 articles in continuing engineering education management, eLearning management and production, and university quality management. Patricio has been a council member for long-standing in the International Association of Continuing Engineering Education, IACEE, and this is the organization that brought us together. I consider Patricio not only a colleague, but as well a very good friend. Patricio holds a master's degree in computer engineering and an MBA from Universidad Polytechnica de Valencia. Patricio, the stage is yours. Before I hand it over to you, though, I did want to let people know that Stanford, as Robert mentioned, is hosting the 14th IACEE World Conference, June 24 to 27. We're excited to be hosting this conference, and they're focused on 3 themes across 3 days, with a 4th day of workshops. We'll talk a little bit about that later. Global Workforce of Tomorrow is the key first day theme. We'll have actually President John Hennessy speaking in the conference to open up the session, as well have a very active industry-focused day. The second day, where Daphne Kohler will be speaking as a keynote speaker, is Innovation in Education. One of the subjects in that area, of course, will be massively open and online courses, and we think even between now and then, the dialogue around MOOCs will have evolved tremendously. And then finally, we try to have a 3rd day where university to industry discussion. That collaboration is so key to many of our organizations, and we think Patricio will be talking a little bit about that right now. Patricio.
So everybody, thank you for being there. Thank you, Paul, for the presentation, and thank you to Stanford for giving us the opportunity to share some time with you and to share some visions we are developing in this field. As Paul mentioned, we have been collaborating the last, let me say, 20 years between the old organizations that are based on or giving base to the association. And at the beginning, we used to have a biannual conference. Now we have a biannual conference. And our idea with the conference is to revise more or less what is happening, what is hot on our business. In fact, all of us deals with what is continuing education, what is continual professional development, And during the time we have been working in this field, we have been facing several challenges. And the last challenge we have now on the table is the MOOC challenge, and how this, let me say, presence is affecting to our business. In some sense, for us, well, to think about MOOCs, supposed to think about the vision and the mission of each institution. And in fact, as this is new wine in the business, it is generating some kind of questions that are on the basis of our business. Do we have to change the vision or the mission of our institutions if we are developing continuing education? Are the MOOCs something new that is going to change the business, or is something that we have to learn how to manage and how to integrate inside our institutions? Most part of the centers that develops continuing education I know in the world at least develop this kind of activities, or maybe short programs, short courses, long programs, consultancy, conference organization, turnkey projects for institutions, for governments, or for other universities. And most part of us, we began the game, some of us long time ago, some of us more recently. What is e-learning, production, and delivery? So having a look on the list of the 19 or the 20 participants we have now, I'm seeing some friends, Alexander, for example, long time without seeing you, or Katrina, or Alfredo, or Alejandro, people who have seen this business from the beginning, from the scratch, and let me say, most part of the people who is present has this vision and this experience. So for me, it's, to share some ideas about MOOCs is something that is fundamental if you organize this volume of activity. If you are developing continuing education activities, you must consider all the threats and all the situations that comes from the same university, and let me say, appears in the middle of the way or the roadmap we developed as institutions. That's why the first question we would like to do is to develop, as Robert mentioned, a small poll, asking you if you consider MOOCs a threat or not. So you have the opportunity to vote. You have the two answers, the two possibilities there. One answer is yes, the MOOCs compete with our traditional activities, and the other answer, the other possibility is no, they don't compete. They are not a threat. They are simply something new that we must consider. So you have to submit the answer once you click. And well, my option is, as I will mention you, is one very specific. But normally the threats for that is something that we must consider seriously, in the sense that they can substitute part of the programs we have already, or maybe they can help us to promote the programs we have already. So in that sense, we have had experience during the last year with the existence of MOOCs is like this, and we will have some comments on this issue at the end of the presentation. The second question I would like to share with you is if you have ever defined an e-marketing strategy, an explicit e-marketing strategy in your unit, in your center, in your program, in your continuing education activities. And again, you have the possibility to give an answer. You have the poll in the screen, and you can select or yes or no. Normally, in these cases, when you don't have the strategy already defined, the kind of ideas we are going to share for us has been always illustrating to share what we are doing in e-marketing with other colleagues, just to confirm that it's something that we are thinking in the correct way. So we have the answers there. We will again make some comments at the end of the presentation. If you don't have the e-marketing strategy, you should begin to think in a explicit e-marketing strategy with the different tools we are able to share. For this purpose, in general, we used to comment with our friends, with our colleagues, that sometimes we have the business far away from the university. And the centers, the continuing education centers or the lifelong learning units, we are some kind of bridges that brings knowledge from the university to the real market, to the alumni, to the companies, to the guys who need the knowledge to be competitive. And as we work as a bridge, we must consider all the possible strategies and roadmaps to act as a bridge, as a university bridge. In general, we consider at least 4 roadmaps when we recommend someone to begin in this business. One of the roadmaps is the technology roadmap, as you can see, to use WebEx or to use Adobe Connect or to use Illuminate, to use technology to develop new activities in continuing education. The second roadmap is related with andragogy, with trying to introduce not the pedagogical questions, but the andragogical questions when you develop continuing education. Of course, you have also a roadmap on the quality, and the one we are going to work today is the roadmap related to e-marketing. Not only marketing, but also e-marketing due to the cost and due to the possibilities that the e-marketing offers us as institutions, as organizations. In fact, there is a classical way of thinking on marketing, that is the 4 Ps or the 7 Ps, depends on how far you have arrived on that. But you have price, product, placement, and promotion, the 4 Ps, as the classical approach to marketing. But when you think on e-marketing, you are thinking in something that is a little bit different. That is what we call the relational marketing. And this relational marketing is more related to what is instead of product, you have to think more in another approach. You have to think more in customer. You have to think in the people who is able to follow these products you are offering. Maybe face-to-face activities, maybe asynchronous material produced and capsulate, or maybe webinars as we are developing now. Webinars and online tutoring is opening us our frontiers in a fantastic sense. Now we are maybe by airplane 11 hours away from Stanford. Here we have 6 o'clock post-meridian, and in Stanford it's 9 o'clock a.m. So these kind of technologies are breaking the barriers we have had in the past to share knowledge and to share activities in this field. But anyway, the important approach when you are talking about e-marketing and roadmaps is to make this change, this focus change. When you think in product, you also have to think in customer. When you think on price, you have to think in characteristics of the product and how you are delivering through the channels you are able to open. In fact, you are now using a new kind of channel, that is the online channel, with a webinar on real time that also will be able to be accessed by a recording that is going to be in the web. And the other question you have to consider is what is communication. And when you talk about e-marketing in general, the people used to confuse what is e-marketing with the tools that allows you to communicate. You have to think also in the customer. You have to think also in the characteristics of the product, in the channels you are going to use, and of course on the tools you are going to use to communicate. But it's not only the tools. It's something that is bigger. And let me say, probably the most important focus we have to put on the table is without customers, you don't need to use no communication tool. You need first to localize who are the customers, and then you can think on the communication tools and the communication strategy you are able to define. Let me reflect a little bit about the customer, the kind of customer we have in this business. Lifelong learning customer can be alumni from the institution, can be other national professionals that are alumni from other institutions, can be people from other fields, from our other countries, from Latin America, maybe from China, maybe from the rest of Europe, from Africa, from India, from the States, from Canada. I mean, at this moment, in fact, with this kind of tools, with this kind of technology, there is no barriers to localize, to identify potential customers in this activity. And 2 questions that for us were really useful when we began to work on that. We must know which are the motivations of the customers, this is the first point, and we should know what do they want from us as institutions that offers continuing education. Then our recommendation we always produce or we always suggest is simply to ask them to have the perception of what they are thinking about. You have perceptions about motivations, you have a perception about where the people comes from, and you have perceptions on what your customers want from us. If you simply ask them, it's very simple to know where they come from. In fact, for us, it's really significant that these figures have changed in the last 15 years. 15 years ago, we have 95% of our customers coming from Spain. At this moment, 25% of the people is not from Spain, it's from abroad Spain, and 25% of the amount of people we register every year are coming from Latin America. That means Mexico, Colombia, means Peru, means Ecuador, means Chile, means Argentina, means Brazil. Let me say, it means Costa Rica. There is several countries where we are offering these activities jointly with other institutions in a win-win approach, or simply developing the activity with them in a win-win base. Next question I suggest you was the motivations. Motivations to follow continuing education. Well, we have asked several times, and these are the conclusions and the motivations that, in general, we found when we asked our customers about why they come to our institution to follow continuing education. And the first answer, and the most important for our reflection, is they come to the university to learn how to solve problems. They don't come to us because they love us, or because they consider that we are really attractive, or they consider they can enjoy a lot being with us. The most important motivation for them to come to the university to follow continuing education is to learn how to solve problems. And it's something fundamental that we must consider permanently in all our strategies. Second and third one are related to loan programs, improving the performance or changing skills to join a new company. This is something that is always present in this kind of inquiries we make to the people who follow our activities. But anyway, the most important and the most selected one is learn how to solve problems, specific problems. That is really engineering approach on how to deal with these kind of situations. Re-entering the labor market is also present. Social needs is also something that appears when you develop these kind of activities, and leisure is something that always is present. Well, what they want from us, and this is the third question I suggest you to ask. Well, in fact, they want information. They want information about what we do, and they want that right now. I mean, in a really quick way. They want to receive the information about the activities you developed, the courses that the university is offering, and they want that as soon as possible. These three elements, you must consider them with the answers that your customers offers you in order to define the e-marketing strategy. And in fact, something that for us is really significant, we are going to offer you some information about how our communication tools operates with our customers, with the UPV customers. In the first semester of the year, this information was prepared by the people who deals with marketing in the CFP, with Alfredo, that is present, I think, in the webinar, and they prepared these 4 slides related to what is visits and what is recruitment, and the impact of each activity we have in communication using tools for e-marketing. The first tool we would like to show you is the traffic, the visits we have with the references we have to our web. And in fact, this is the effect of having our web inside the UPV umbrella, or down the UPV umbrella. This reference that suppose half of the traffic we have in our web, suppose half of the registrations of the recruitment of the people who paid. Recruitment means people who paid for receive a course. Half of the people we have, 54%. But you have to consider also how which is the rentability of these tools and these activities you developed. Because something is the recruitment and the results on recruitment, and something is how effective are the visits you receive in your web. So, in fact, you have to think on how to mix the actions in both lines. One line is to work or to think on how effective are the accesses to the web, that is, how useful or how effective are the user experience with your web. And the second question is how effective is after that, after this visit, to recruit people. So, This is the first figure, and it's something we will discuss in the conference, in the workshops we are going to develop in Stanford next June, which are the most effective strategy to follow. But references, direct references is not the only tool we use. The second one we use is the SEO, the SEO, SAO. This is the active position we developed to understand how the search engine optimization is operating to access the people to our web. The SAO has two aspects: what is called the SIM or the SAM, and the pay-per-click. That means to use Google AdWords. That is to publicize, to add some words through Google. You pay for that. That is, there is a way of managing that, the pay-per-click system. And as you can see, it's, let me say, really very effective. The amount of people who recruits from this way of arriving to our web is 22% of the global recruitment. And we have this 3.9 effective from the visit to the recruitment. So at this point, let me say that I am not able to say what is better and what is worst in general. Probably you have to combine not only the SAO activities, but also the traffic and the direct links you have to the web of the institution. So this is the second element we are putting on the table, and we will reflect on that in the conference, in the seminar we will organize in the conference. The third element you have to consider when you develop communication is to consider the possibility of organizing or having some kind of bulletin to send information to your customers, to the people who is registered in the database you have from guys who follow continuing education or has followed historically continuing education in your institution. As you can see, the same effect or similar effect with the SAO has our bulletin. It's around 20% of the recruitment happens through the automatic bulletin we produce. So between SAO and the bulletin, let me say, you have to consider maybe activities or tactics or projects that develop maybe both lines in your institution. And the fourth and more old-fashioned way of developing that are the social media. Let me say, social media produce, in our case, we are in Facebook, we are in 20, we are in Google Plus, has not too much effect. We are not in LinkedIn at this moment. These three social media, what is Facebook, what is 20, and what is Google Plus, produce 6% of the recruitment. But you can see that we have around 4,000 persons in Facebook that are followers, and these 4,000 persons produce 18,000 visits to our web. And if you relate visits with recruitment, you can see that probably is the most effective visit or information producer or recruitment producer, the presence in social media. So again, four tools, four different ways of accessing to our customers, four different strategies to work from the e-marketing point of view, and all has strengths and threats, opportunities and weakness. You need to make some kind of SWOT to analyze which is your position with these tools for developing marketing and how they can be effective or not. So, till here, what is, let me say, how we organize, how we use some tools. Let me share with you a small reflection. We classified all our activities using these areas, these elements to classify our offer, our courses, and we mix that with other questions. Is we classify also the registers, the 80,000 people we have in our database. In fact, our database is classified. The registers, the people who is in our database is classified in the same way we classify our continuing education activities. Then for us, it's very simple to cross in an automatic way exactly this information. That means that we are able to cross what we offer with the things that the people are demanding. So for us, it's really very effective, as I mentioned, in the sense that we do that every week. And an electronic bulletin is something that is not expensive to develop. It's very simple, and it's really, really very effective. For us, means 20% of our business. So what we think that our communication is effective? Well, the first thing is we have a really strong alumni database, classified, as I mentioned, in 35 interest areas, and we are able to cross that with the offer we developed. And we invite our customers to register in our database. In fact, the message is, come to our website, register, and you will receive information about this continuing education we developed. Third question is, we try to personalize, to customize the communication. This e-bulletin suppose that every week we send this information with the courses that we have typed inside our database. And we don't type that twice. We type only once, and this information we introduce in the database is crossed with the registers of the alumni we have there. So, in fact, there is other options for doing that, or there is options for doing that. 13 years ago, when we began in 2000 with that, we have only one option, was to develop that in-house. Nowadays, there is several CRMs in the market that are able to make this crossing, this information crossing, that are really, really very effective. So, till here, what is emarketing? In fact, MOOCs is part of this emarketing, as we will reflect in a few moments. In fact, for us, there is a question at this moment: is to MOOC or not to MOOC? And this is something that we have to have present as institutions that are organizing and offering continuing education. So for us, I love to use this idea. Coming from Chinese, from the history of China, to define crisis, there is two elements to define crisis. There is a risk and there is opportunities. Both things generates Wei Yi, that is crisis. That is a mix between these opportunities and these risks. And in fact, your answers when we asked you about MOOCs threat or not, I think you are thinking that this is a risk, but also this opportunity is an opportunity. There is several opportunities to follow nowadays MOOCs, as you probably know. I don't know if you have signed up for a MOOC in the last months. I did, and I have this feeling that most part of the people, well, it's not a feeling, it's something that statistically has been studied. 30% of the people don't complete the course because they don't open the course. This is really funny. They don't get inside. They register and they don't get inside. And we will see later the results we have had here in our institution. That is really common with the rest of results. But when you are talking about a MOOC with a lot of people, thousands or several people having the MOOCs present, we have this feeling. I mean, when you play soccer, it's something, and when you see soccer players, it's something different. And the MOOCs have something really near to be in a soccer stadium, looking how Messi is playing. I mean, I will never play like Messi because I am not Messi. But to play like him, you need to have some kind of competencies development that we don't know exactly if this kind of offer is able to develop. But nevertheless, the MOOCs is a reality that you must consider. I love this Lisa Lane approach to the MOOCs and the taxonomy she has developed. It's very simple. There is network-based, and that is interaction among people. There are task-based, that is you have to develop something that someone is going to correct or some system is going to correct. And then you have the traditional content-based approach that you follow some content, and the competence development is something that is based on you and the reflection you do with the material. There is at least 4 strategies. In fact, we have free access and pay-per-view, and would you have the generate revenue searching, and there is people who is not searching for money. Well, nevertheless, again, there is something that is present, and we must consider which are the strategies to face that. In fact, we have these figures. To produce 25 hours equivalent one ECTS, 1 week of work, suppose approximately 150 hours of expert works. This is something that is, let me say, something we have contrast with all the years working on production and in delivery. And let me say, if you have time enough and money enough to produce that, I mean, this is good. But consider that at least you have to produce, you have to introduce, you have to invest these 150 hours to produce one ECTS to be offered as a MOOC or not, but to be offered. The second question is how much time you spend teaching 25 hours, teaching one ECTS. Our calculations are coming are approx to 50 minutes per participant. That means that if you have 1,000, you will need 250 hours devoted to what is the teaching process. So you have to consider that probably MOOCs are very near to what is an e-marketing strategy to develop something that is also called guerrilla marketing. That is the marketing that is very near to the user. So MOOCs are covering one area of customers that probably we haven't faced till now. And in fact, we consider that all the institutions now are thinking on which are the business models that could be used to face the MOOC question. What we have seen that are operating, because we have used them, the first thing is a MOOC that contextualized a book, or maybe a published content, but a book fundamentally. And is an e-marketing tool to sell books. And this is one of the, we consider business model that is real, and we have used that. So we can say that is quite effective. If you have the book, then produce a MOOC to sell the book. Okay, second business model is to use the MOOC as a trailer, something that introduces you a long course or another course that you have already produced. Then again, MOOC become an e-marketing strategy and a tool to sell later the course you already have produced. The third one is the paper exam, and we have tried this business model and has been an absolutely disaster. Because the people who register in a MOOC, they don't want to pay. So if you offer them to paper an exam, the result is what we have had. I don't say you the name of the course, but we have 1,000 registrations in one MOOC, one of the MOOCs we have offered. And when we offer them the possibility to pay per an exam to get the UPB certified, 12 people pay for doing that. 1,000, 12. Okay? You have to consider. I mean, it's 1% of the possibility. Then you have to be very careful on what you offer as a MOOC, but it's possible to offer that. Now I understand that Coursera is offering, I think it's $50, something like that, a paper exam model. Maybe in the next month, maybe before the conference, we will have the opportunity to have some feedback from them. But well, the last one is a MOOC sponsored. And this is something that is operating fairly well inside this institution. You have to have a MOOC that explains something very specific that are present in one company, or is components, or are components from one company, or is software from one company. In that case, the approach or the feedback we have had with that is really very positive. Of course, these 4 strategies has been tested, and we have the experience we will share also in the seminar in Stanford next June. There is other business models. I mean, to be very rich is one business model, and I don't know how many institutions has this kind of budget in the world, but there is at least one that has this budget, and they have spent $60 million US dollars to the MOOC business. There is another business or another model, are what we call the ego MOOCs. That's a MOOC that support the ego of someone. I mean, and this is something that is medium way between a joke and something serious. We have found inside our institution some kind of ego MOOCs already produced. But nevertheless, this is something that probably is present, but is not too much recommendable. And the last strategy, I mean, in fact, this effect of the MOOCs is the same we have had in the past with free courses that we have offered, because we produce that with money coming from ministerial funds or from European funds or from donations. The free courses normally has this 80% of people who finish the course. So if you pay, you have some kind of emotional relation with the activity. If you don't, well, it's really difficult. So, and I'm finishing this part. Try to avoid begin on that without a business model. So choose one. Maybe you can choose 3 or 4, but choose one. Don't begin without a business model. This is not a good way of developing that, because this is expensive. I mean, and you have to. You don't have to forget the return on investment on this activity you're going to develop. Teachers, academy has this kind of 2 motivations, recognition and or money, and it's something you have to have present when you work in this business. What is really surprising is to see how the MOOCs has evolved in the last year and a half. This was May 2012, and this is October 2013. I mean, it's something we have to face. Maybe it's not a threat, but it's something we have to help to develop in institutions, because the people who is in the business of continuing education, we are those who are more related to the market. Remember the bridge, and remember the idea of being there. And well, the MOOC has also a hypercycle, and this hypercycle now is beginning at the end of 2013. It's beginning going down like this. So, related to that, I think we will have some recommendations to share with you. The first one is, when you are talking about MOOCs, when you are talking about e-marketing, you have to find out what your customer needs. And you have to develop the offer or what you are doing following these needs, not following our needs. And with MOOCs, we have, let me say, have faced this situation that we are offering sometimes things that we consider without asking that someone needs, but maybe it's not as true as we thought. E-marketing, well, let me say that social media is effective, but not as effective as the SEO or the personalized bulletin. And the next step we are thinking is in the APP business to generate emotional marketing. So, for finishing this part, and leaving the floor to Paul, use MOOCs if you only have a good business model. Don't do that in the opposite way. So, let me share with you 2 phrases. One is coming from our friend Andy De Paulo. Lifelong learning is no longer an option, it's a requirement, and we are in the correct position to help institutions to understand that. And something that Einstein used to say, if you want to get different results, don't do the same things. Try to do different things to get different results. So, till here my presentation. Thank you very much for your time and for your attention. And Paul, the floor is yours. The control of the presentation is now back to Stanford.
Patricio, thank you very much for a really informative talk. I appreciated the notion that you have a business model focused in driving both inquiries as well as registrations as you articulated them. And the way that you actually are thinking about MOOCs, you better have a business model. And I particularly like the hype cycle slide. I would say that here at Stanford, having done much with regard to the MOOCs, we're probably down on the trough of disillusionment at this point. Many people coming, not many people completing, and faculty members are dedicating a lot of time to actually producing these MOOCs, and the yield and the benefits are less clear. So I think you make a great point to see to talk a lot about the business model as being key. So now I wanted to address for you a couple of things. First, we have in the 2014 IACEE World Conference, we're pleased to be hosting this at Stanford University. And on June 24th, we actually have 2 workshops that will be featuring. Many of the discussion points will be in and around massively open and online courses, as well as social media tools, as Patricio mentioned. The first featured workshop is Innovations in Continuing Engineering Education. Soma Chakrabarti is leading that charge, along with Lars Fruland. I will be participating in that as well. We're excited about exploring new business activities and initiatives in your organizations, whether you're an individual contributor or a leader. And the second workshop will be Best Practices in Lifelong Learning. Kim Scalzo will be leading that, e-marketing through social media and online tools, and we'll have a host of characters participating in that. We're excited about those half-day workshops, and they will feed into this new initiative. We're quite pleased. The International Association for Continuing Engineering Education is creating a manager's training program. These workshops will give some clarity and qualify for this new certificate that we're actually developing. Pat Hall and Kim Scalzo are leading the charge in this area, and you see the program content areas and the program features. We hope over time, if you complete the requisite number of content areas, whether it's face-to-face, as we'll have in the workshops in Stanford, perhaps there are webinars, live webinars that you can engage in, as well as some coaching and online activities, you'll be able to actually get a certificate in this particular space. I will say that many of us engaged in continuing education, and particularly continuing engineering education, have come about this as an accidental career. And as such, we're trying to think about ways to professionalize the career path, to allow people to share ideas, tools, and techniques. And the education here, as well as the conference, is designed to share these lessons, to really start to build a community. I now know that I can call on Patricio, who's done both MOOCs as well as actual paid programs where he has lots of registrations, and maybe we can share ideas that I hadn't thought about. So these are some ways that we're, as IACE, trying to build the community. If I can digress for just a moment, Nelson Baker, who's the president of the IACEE and dean of Georgia Tech's professional education group, he and I were chatting a little bit about the fact that the MOOCs, the benefit of MOOCs has been the white-hot spotlight in online learning, and many of us have been doing this for many years. And so there's clear opportunities, as Patricio mentioned in his talk, to think about the business model and to consider ways to leverage the activity in this space. And clearly, these programs, both the manager training program, the conference that we're hosting, and the workshops will do that. So right now, I would like to just take a quick poll, if I could. You'll see in the right-hand gutter of your screen, if you click on the polling question there, what is your level of interest in the IACEE 2014 World Conference here at Stanford University? What we'd like you to do is vote by selecting the appropriate button, and you can, it's a drop-down menu, so please just make your selection. The selections are, I'm interested in attending the conference, I'm interested in attending the conference workshops. Not sure, please send me more information, or I'm not ready at this time. And in the lower right-hand area of your screen, you can hit Submit, which will allow us to collect the information. I guess the polls are coming in, and it takes us about 20 seconds to collate the polls and get that going. So at this point, perhaps we can proceed on to the question and answer session. I know some of you have generated some questions for Patricio. If you're still on the line, you can also do that via the chat function or the Q&A button as well, whichever you prefer. There are a couple of questions, Patricio, that we had. The first one was related to motivation. So as you engage your customers, does the motivation change if the customer is an individual or a company? Maybe you can talk a little bit about your experience along those lines, and I certainly have a few thoughts as well.
Well, in fact, are really contradictory. I mean, the motivations from the individuals normally are, and it's really funny, are not related with the motivation of the guys who contract the individuals. So let me explain that. Normally, the people who deals with continuing education in the organizations are not, let me say, considering the needs of the individuals. They are considering the needs of the organization. And sometimes these are something that gets in contradiction or produce contradictions with the individual needs. Let me say one example. Normally, when you have a new software you have acquired in the organization, the software becomes a problem if you don't organize continuing education to use the software. Probably you will have faced the situation that the people is asking for continuing education on this new software, but those who deals with continuing education, they are simply thinking on developing an activity on how to motivate the collaborators. So the funny thing you face in general is that the individuals in general have these kind of motivations that are more related to their personal professional career, and the institution, the organizations don't consider the personal career when they organize continuing education. Of course, there is exceptions, but in our case, that we are immersed in a small and medium-sized enterprises environment, what we define and decide at the beginning of this process was to consider the needs of the individuals instead of considering the needs of the organization. Of course, we work with companies and we organize continuing education for them, but mainly let me say, 80% of our activity is devoted to individuals that are working in companies instead of continuing education for companies that have some kind of need. Perhaps, Paul, you have a different approach to that or a comment to make?
No, I think your sense is correct. As an individual, I'm thinking about how to extend and expand my career opportunities to learn and grow on the job. And what we have found is often learning and development professionals are asked to scan the business to determine what's most relevant for the companies. And we've found a disconnect between what the individual wants and what the company and learning, training, and development leader would like to see happen. And so what we try to do, where possible, is get the business unit leader, perhaps the research and development head or the engineering lead, who understands both the need for training, but also can help manage, to the extent necessary, the training and development professional to make sure that that conversation is bridged so that what the individual needs, what the business unit needs, and what learning and development will support, that conversation needs to be connected. And so we have found working to bridge those is where we have the most success in making progress to benefit both the individual as well as the company who may have some need. There's another question here I wanted to pose to you, Patricio. Are there examples of MOOCs where the business model is such that there's a significant positive yield? And I'm assuming connecting the business and the positive yield, revenue generated would be one way to think about that. Patricio, do you have any sense of that?
Yep. We have we have produced at this moment 14 MOOCs from UPV. Let me share with you the one we produce on Android, mobile programming with Android. We have 30,000 registered people in the MOOC, and the MOOC, the strategy we use in this MOOC was to have a book, or to have, in fact, the activity has a book on Android. The book, we sell 5,000 books after the MOOC. 30,000 guys, 5,000 books sold. So this was really very surprising for us, and of course, every time we have put a face-to-face activity on MOOCs, on Android programming, we have had to repeat 4 times the activity. 4 times with 25 guys every time. So that means that let me say this wasn't an intuition. We had perfectly clear that was a market on Android programming, And we use Android, the MOOC, to promote not only the book, but also the face-to-face activity. So this is one good example, successful example. The other one we are now developing, is a MOOC on solar photovoltaic energy. And this MOOC is paid by the companies who produce solar cells and components. I don't remember exactly the names of the companies. There are 4 companies that are paying for the MOOC, and one is SMA, that is the biggest producer in the world of photovoltaic cells. So this experience was really different in the sense that no one has already go to these kind of companies to offer them the MOOC approach. And one of the non-successful experiences we have had that is, let me say, for me also significant, is our approach to SAP, to SAP. We offered them the possibility to develop the MOOCs, but what the funny thing is they decide to develop their own MOOCs from inside. So you have to be very realistic on which are the companies you are offering MOOCs, and being careful not offering this kind of ideas to those who are able to produce without you. So this is one of the lessons, the strong lessons we learn from the SAP experience.
I have a related question. As you think about MOOCs and your connection to your existing business, have you seen much traction between free open courses and paid customers? Have you done any analysis on that?
Yeah, we did, and the conclusion is not too much positive. The customers for MOOC are looking for activities for free. Yeah? So our first approach is the MOOCs customers is a different segment to the usual customer, and this is not bad. I mean, you're able to arrive to other segment that could interact with your products, but let me say, the requirements of the MOOC customer are not the same for those who pay for following a specific activity. So for us, this is positive or negative, but it's different customer. Those who are able to consume the MOOCs, and in fact, they consume the MOOCs. And the second point we are now facing is those who use the MOOC to promote face-to-face activities are being really successful. It's a good strategy. I mean, to have a course already developed and then use a MOOC to make marketing of this activity. In that sense, we have a geotelematic. No, it's not the correct word. Ingeniería telemática. Ingeniería cartotelemática. That is to use mobiles to localize people in the world, around the world. It's geomatic engineering. So this kind of global positioning activity, when we developed the MOOC, we have 4,000 persons that came to this very strange, let me say, not strange, very vertical area. And after that, we have 100 guys trying to get inside the face-to-face activity. So, let me say, different people may be, different approaches, but some kind of convergence if you're working with something that is very vertical.
Got it. So, Patricio, we have a couple more questions in the queue, but to honor people's time, we really must wrap up. Thank you so much, Patricio, for the great presentation and for the keen insight that you provided us today. Want to again mention that Stanford will be hosting this IACE World Conference June 24 to 27. We hope to continue the conversation on the Stanford campus, as well as in webinars that you'll be seeing in future. Again, Patricio, thank you so much, and thank you all for attending. Good day in the United States, and if you're in Europe, good evening.